The news played footage of Chloe Davenport dying in her hospital bed. She was curled up, a bewildered expression on her face. I couldn't help but remember her back, as she ran straight to the airport on her wedding day. Now, she had requested to see me hundreds of times, but I had my assistant burn all her letters. She used to call me broke. Now, the zeros in my bank account are enough to buy her entire family's ashes, and stack them into a pyramid. I looked at Chloe Davenport in front of me, an impatient expression on my face. Years ago, when she left me, it was at our wedding reception, and because of it, I became the laughingstock of countless people. But Chloe Davenport had been gone for 5 years, with not a single word. Now, she was still with Kyle Davis, blocking my path, and actually claiming she wanted to marry me. I felt like I'd just heard the funniest joke. Ethan Carter, what do you mean? She saw me turn to leave, immediately blocked my way, and shouted at me, I am already willing to forgive you, so why are you still acting so angry? Chloe, is Ethan treating you this way because I am with you? Kyle Davis said from behind me, his face full of feigned grievance. Kyle Davis, this has nothing to do with you. Chloe Davenport spoke up immediately. If he hadn't treated me so poorly back then, I wouldn't have left. Besides, you were so seriously ill at the time. I left to take care of you, she said, comforting Kyle Davis. I turned and glanced at Kyle Davis, who was looking at Chloe Davenport with a put-upon expression. When Chloe Davenport wasn't looking, he shot me a triumphant glance. I smiled faintly. I knew he was faking his illness. But honestly, there's no saving a person like that. He was willing to fake an illness for 5 years, all for Chloe Davenport. As for Chloe Davenport herself, I couldn't stand her even more. This kind of woman had completely disgusted me. Ethan Carter, didn't you hear me? I told you to apologize to me, she shouted at me, relentlessly. I looked at Chloe Davenport in front of me, shook my head, and asked, why should I apologize? What did I do wrong? I was already getting impatient, even wanting to ignore Chloe Davenport completely. But this woman was causing such a scene right at the airport entrance, still blocking me. Why, you ask? Hearing this, Chloe Davenport glared at me, and said, didn't I tell you that day that Kyle Davis was sick, the wedding was cancelled, and I needed to go take care of Kyle Davis? What was your attitude back then? She questioned me loudly. I looked at Chloe Davenport, smiled, said nothing, and simply pushed her aside. There was nothing left to say to someone like her. Seeing me leave, Chloe Davenport angrily tried to grab me, but I shook her off. Chloe Davenport, you and I were over 5 years ago, don't bother me anymore. I turned my head coldly to Chloe Davenport and said, my words left Chloe Davenport stunned in place. After getting rid of Chloe Davenport, I walked out of the airport. My secretary was already waiting for me nearby. When she saw me, my secretary quickly opened the car door, letting me get inside. After dropping me off at home, she left immediately. I was exhausted from a day of flying, so I lay down and fell asleep. But I didn't expect that just as I lay down, my phone began ringing urgently. I looked at Chloe's number on my phone and frowned slightly. 5 years ago, when I called Chloe Davenport, she had directly blocked my number. I never thought I'd receive a call from her 5 years later. Ethan Carter, what do you mean? The moment I answered the call, Chloe Davenport angrily said from the other end, I contacted my family, and they said you broke up with me. What right do you have to break up with me? Ethan Carter, how could you do this? I never said I wanted to break up. Chloe Davenport spoke relentlessly over the phone. Listening to Chloe Davenport's words, I smiled coldly. I didn't say anything else, because in my view, none of it mattered anymore. Chloe Davenport, 5 years ago, you chose to leave. I told you then that once you left, we would be over. I said indifferently, Ethan Carter, I originally came back to give you a chance to apologize to me. If you had apologized, I would have forgiven you. I can't believe you still have this attitude. Chloe Davenport said coldly over the phone, believe it or not, I am really not going to talk to you anymore. Listening to Chloe Davenport's words on the phone, I smiled and simply hung up. I genuinely couldn't be bothered to continue talking to Chloe Davenport. After hanging up, I prepared to go back to sleep. After all, Chloe Davenport had long ceased to matter to me. When I woke up, it was already the next morning. My secretary brought me breakfast. Mr. Carter, you have a dinner party tonight. My secretary looked at me and said, the dinner party is at the Grand Meridian Hotel in the city. Hearing the hotel's name, I froze. 5 years ago, it was at this very hotel that Chloe Davenport dumped me. At the time, she simply received a call from Kyle Davis, and heartlessly walked out on me. Thinking about it now, I finally understood that I meant absolutely nothing to Chloe Davenport. After I agreed, my secretary hurried off. She needed to go prepare the venue first. After finishing breakfast, I prepared to meet with a few leaders. After all, I had returned this time for investment purposes. After discussing with them, they told me that many business elites would be attending the dinner party tonight, and they hoped I would thoroughly evaluate them. After all, I had brought a significant amount of capital this time. I readily agreed. It was already evening when I arrived at the dinner party. The moment I reached the hotel entrance, I saw Chloe Davenport and Kyle Davis. Both of them looked surprised when they saw me. Chloe Davenport, in particular, walked directly towards me. "Ethan Carter, what do you mean?" Her face was flushed with anger as she glared at me. "What right do you have to break up with me?" I looked at Chloe Davenport in front of me, shook my head, and said, "Chloe Davenport, you and I are long over, please stop bothering me." "Ethan Carter, if I didn't say I wanted to break up, then we haven't broken up." She looked at me and said, "How can you be so petty? Kyle Davis was sick, and I went to take care of him. What's the problem? You want to break up with me just because of that? Ethan Carter, are you even a man?" I couldn't be bothered with Chloe Davenport, so I turned and walked away, but Chloe Davenport relentlessly blocked my path. "Let me tell you, Ethan Carter, I am giving you a chance. Our family company has developed rapidly these past few years. If you marry me, I'll have my father give you a good project." She then pointed at Kyle Davis and said, "I brought Kyle Davis here this time to have him take on our family company's business." I burst out laughing as I listened to Chloe Davenport. I knew exactly what kind of person Kyle Davis was. All these years, had been exploiting Chloe Davenport, nothing more than a good-for-nothing who knew nothing. Only Chloe Davenport would think Kyle Davis was pitiful. As for Chloe Davenport's family company, I was well aware of everyone attending the dinner party tonight, and I understood even better what kind of companies they ran. Chloe Davenport's family company was already facing severe cash flow problems. They desperately needed a large sum of money for investment, and my secretary had even been contacted by them in advance about my visit. Once I knew it was the Davenports, I was actually already unwilling to cooperate with them. Chloe Davenport, at this moment, was completely unaware of all this. Instead, she thought their family company was thriving exceptionally well. I ignored Chloe Davenport and Kyle Davis, turned, and prepared to walk towards the venue. But Kyle Davis and Chloe Davenport blocked me again. "Ethan, this isn't a place you should be." Kyle Davis looked at me and said. Hearing this, I stared at Kyle Davis and asked, "Why can't I go in?" "Ethan, only business elites are here tonight. This isn't for people like you," he said. Then looked at Chloe Davenport and added, "I know about your relationship with Chloe, but your presence will embarrass Mr. Davenport. Ethan Carter, leave quickly." Hearing this, Chloe Davenport suddenly spoke to me. "Kyle Davis is right, you shouldn't be here. Now, hurry up and go." I looked at the two of them, shook my head, and simply prepared to walk into the venue, not wanting to deal with them. Whether I can be here or not is not up to you two to decide. I was already suppressing my anger. After all, I had been invited, but Chloe Davenport and Kyle Davis were blocking my way. "Ethan Carter, are you deaf?" Chloe Davenport suddenly pushed me away and said, "Only important people are here today. Who do you think you are? My dad told me you resigned and left a long time ago. Now, you don't even have a decent job. I know you're here just to meet some big boss and get yourself a job. But if people find out you're my former fiancé, our family will lose face. Now, leave quickly." As she spoke, she pushed me away again. Listening to Chloe Davenport's words, I laughed in disbelief. It was the first time I realized this woman had a screw loose. "Chloe Davenport, I was invited here." I looked at Chloe Davenport and said coldly, "Nonsense." The moment I finished speaking, Kyle Davis, who was standing beside me, looked at me and said, "Ethan, I know you don't have much talent, and you must have had a tough life these past few years. But this really isn't the place for you to look for a job. I've already checked, everyone here today is a wealthy businessman from the city, and you're not among them," he said, looking at me triumphantly. "Ethan, you'd better leave quickly." I looked at Kyle Davis and Chloe Davenport. At that moment, Chloe Davenport came right up to me and pulled at me, saying, Ethan Carter, as long as you admit your mistake to me, I'll have my father take you back, and you can return to the company. I smiled and asked, Chloe Davenport, I have no interest in joining your family's company. Chloe Davenport, you and Kyle Davis are quite good together, just stop bothering me. I waved my hand. Hearing this, Chloe Davenport stared at me coldly and said, Ethan Carter, your thoughts are truly dirty. I told you, there's nothing going on between me and Kyle Davis, you've always been my boyfriend. Listening to Chloe Davenport's words, I couldn't help but laugh. She could leave for Kyle Davis for 5 years, completely out of touch, and now she was telling me there was nothing between them, and that she actually liked me. I wouldn't dare touch a woman like that, I said indifferently. Chloe Davenport, you and I have had nothing to do with each other for a long time. Now, please stop bothering me. Ethan Carter, why? Chloe Davenport looked at me and angrily said, you clearly liked me, so why would you break up with me? Chloe Davenport, my affection for you was long ago exhausted by you. I turned away indifferently, and said to Chloe Davenport, we were childhood sweethearts. I had liked Chloe Davenport since we were kids. After graduation, I had a promising future, but for Chloe Davenport, I gave up my job at a major corporation and joined Davenport Industries. At that time, I always thought Chloe Davenport and I would love each other for a lifetime. But Chloe Davenport started to change with the appearance of Kyle Davis. No matter when, Kyle Davis would always appear in front of Chloe Davenport and me at the most inopportune times. At that time, she always claimed there was nothing between her and Kyle Davis. But no matter what we did, she would always compare me to Kyle Davis, until the day of our wedding, when Kyle Davis claimed he was sick and needed to seek medical treatment overseas. Because of that one sentence, Chloe Davenport abandoned our wedding to go find Kyle Davis. From then on, Chloe Davenport and I had no future together. Chloe Davenport stared at me blankly, panic in her eyes. I said nothing, simply pushed Chloe Davenport aside, and prepared to walk towards the venue. The next moment, I was blocked again. Ethan Carter, you can't go in today, leave right now. She glared at me furiously. This party is hosted by my family, and you just can't come. Hearing this, I chuckled. Fine. If you don't welcome me, I'll leave. As I spoke, I called my secretary. Boss. My secretary's voice came through the phone. Are you here? I'll come down to pick you up right away. No need. Tell them the Davenports don't welcome me. We can leave. The moment I finished speaking, my secretary paused, then said, all right, boss, I understand. After hanging up, I looked at Chloe Davenport and said with a smile, Chloe Davenport, don't you dare regret this. Ethan, stop pretending. Why would we regret anything? Either one whole regret this, aren't you? Kyle Davis said from the side, looking at me. Hearing that, I simply smiled without responding. After all, the Davenports were the ones who had begged me to return this time. They just didn't know that the mysterious wealthy investor they were desperately trying to court was me. In that case, I'll be leaving. After leaving the hotel, I immediately called my secretary and cancelled all cooperation. It wasn't me who was in a hurry anymore. When I returned to my residence, my secretary rushed over, and with her were several city officials. They were also extremely anxious now, looking at me and asking, Mr. Carter, why did you suddenly withdraw from the cooperation? The Davenports are unwilling to cooperate with me. I said coldly, I apologize, gentlemen, but I cannot continue to cooperate with the Davenports. My words made the city officials' expressions change. They had just found out that I had been blocked outside the hotel. They were all astonished at the time, and some even called Arthur Davenport directly. Arthur Davenport also looked incredulous, and hastily said he would find out what happened. After telling me a few things, the officials reluctantly left. The Davenports were already on the verge of collapse. They had sought me out to invest in their company, but who knew that Chloe Davenport's arrival would ruin the investment plan? After they left, I looked at my secretary in front of me and said, let's go back. Yes, Mr. Carter. My secretary wasted no time. She quickly packed everything and followed me to the airport. I hadn't expected to see Arthur Davenport and Chloe Davenport, who had chased after me the moment I arrived at the airport. Chloe Davenport was looking at me with a complicated expression, and the moment she spoke, it was a question. Ethan Carter, what do you mean? Why didn't you make it clear that you were the wealthy investor coming to our family company? I looked at Chloe Davenport, shook my head, and asked, "If I told you I was the wealthy investor, would you have believed me?" My words left Chloe Davenport stunned. She definitely wouldn't have believed it. "Ethan, I never thought that after 5 years, you would have achieved so much." Arthur Davenport looked at me, smiling, and said, "It's been years since we last saw each other. Chloe is just immature. We can talk to her slowly. Why are you still angry? After all, you and Chloe should have married 5 years ago. Chloe also said she was immature back then. Now, my boy, why don't you come back with me?" He then looked at me and said, "Your wedding with Chloe has been delayed for 5 years. It's time to hold it." I pushed Arthur Davenport's hand away, looked at him, and shook my head. "Mr. Davenport, your daughter and I have long been over." "What do you mean, impossible?" Hearing this, Arthur Davenport looked at me and said, "You and Chloe were always meant to be. You liked Chloe so much back then." "Mr. Davenport, I have other matters to attend to, so we'll be leaving," I said coldly, and as soon as I finished speaking, I turned and prepared to leave, but Arthur Davenport suddenly grabbed me and said, "Ethan, didn't you come here to invest? How about this? I'll arrange for Chloe to marry you, then your company and ours will merge, and everything will be under Chloe's name. After all, Chloe is my only daughter, so it will all be yours eventually." Arthur Davenport's words made my eyes widen. This family truly schemes to the very end. They were originally begging me for investment, and now they were even plotting to get my assets. "Mr. Davenport, do you think that's possible?" I looked at Arthur Davenport and asked with a cold laugh. He didn't even bother to look at the state of the Davenports now. They were practically on the verge of bankruptcy. If the city officials hadn't asked me to come and assess the investment, I wouldn't have come at all. Furthermore, after arriving and reviewing the Davenports' financial reports, it was clear that investment was out of the question. It wasn't the Davenports I was interested in anyway. Now, there was even less need to continue talking with the Davenports. Seeing my disagreement, Arthur Davenport's expression turned a bit colder as he said, "Ethan, I was the one who mentored you. Have you forgotten that, when you joined our company, I personally guided you?" Listening to Arthur Davenport's words, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Back then, when Chloe Davenport brought me back to the Davenports, Arthur Davenport looked down on me. If I hadn't secured several large deals for the Davenports, he wouldn't have even agreed to my relationship with Chloe Davenport, and after Chloe Davenport abandoned our wedding, he blamed everything on me. Yet now, he could shamelessly claim he was good to me. "Mr. Davenport, you know very well how the Davenports treated me back then, so let's not speak of these things anymore," I said coldly. Hearing my words, Arthur Davenport's face turned even uglier. He realized that whatever he said, it seemed utterly powerless. I turned and walked away. At this point, I couldn't be bothered to continue talking with anyone from the Davenports. Seeing me about to leave, Arthur Davenport's face grew even uglier, and he directly nudged Chloe Davenport. Chloe Davenport came up, ready to grab me, and said, "Ethan Carter, I know I was wrong. I promise I'll treat you well from now on." "No need, Ms. Davenport. You and Kyle Davis should just live your lives well." I pushed Chloe Davenport's hand away, and, at the same time, entered the airport directly with my secretary. They tried to follow, but found that I had entered the departure lounge, and they couldn't get in. After returning home, I saw my girlfriend, Sarah Miller, busy in the kitchen, and I smiled. Several years ago, during my lowest point, I met Sarah Miller. It was she who stayed by my side through the darkest period of my life. It was also because of her that I regained my confidence, founded my own company, and became one of the city's wealthiest families. I embraced Sarah Miller, and she looked at me, smiling. "What, you're already missing me after being away for a few days?" "Yes, I am." I nodded and said, "I ran into Chloe Davenport." Hearing this, Sarah Miller paused, then said, "The one who abandoned the wedding. I actually really want to meet her. I am curious why someone as excellent as my husband would have been abandoned at the wedding." Sarah Miller said playfully, not at all nervous. After years of being together, she had complete trust in me. After staying at home for a few days, the city officials called me several times. I told them I could invest, but not in the Davenports. The city officials were resigned. They knew the Davenports would certainly go bankrupt without investment, but they hadn't expected it to come to this. However, they eventually agreed. I had my secretary handle it. As for me, I couldn't even be bothered to go. I had thought that given my situation, I should no longer have anything to do with the Davenports. But to my surprise, one day my secretary told me that there was a woman causing a scene downstairs at the company, claiming to be the CEO's wife. I glanced at Sarah Miller, who was sitting beside me. Everyone in the company knew that Sarah Miller and I were a model couple. Sarah Miller was right here, so who was that person outside? Sarah Miller looked at me and said, "Should I go take a look? Let's go together." Hearing this, I nodded. I had a strong suspicion of who it was. Sarah Miller and I went downstairs. Sure enough, standing at the main entrance was Chloe Davenport. She was pointing at the person in front of her, shouting furiously, "How dare you stop me? I am your boss wife. Do you want to lose your job? When Ethan Carter comes down, I'll have him fire you." She stood at the entrance, continuously scolding the receptionist. I looked at Chloe Davenport. My eyes filled with disgust. Sarah Miller pointed at Chloe Davenport and asked, "Ethan, is this the woman who abandoned your wedding?" I nodded. Sarah Miller then walked directly up to Chloe Davenport, looked at her, and said, Chloe Davenport, who are you?" Chloe Davenport suddenly asked, looking at Sarah Miller. At the same time, she saw me standing behind Sarah Miller. She looked at me nervously and said, "Ethan, you finally showed up." Chloe Davenport, I've made it very clear to you, you and I have nothing to do with each other. I looked indifferently at Chloe Davenport in front of me and said. Hearing this, Chloe Davenport angrily pointed at Sarah Miller beside me and said, "Ethan, is it because of this woman that you don't want to marry me?" Her voice was loud and filled with anger as she looked at Sarah Miller and declared, "I am Chloe Davenport, Ethan Carter's wife." "Chloe Davenport, you and I have had nothing to do with each other for a long time," I said indifferently. Hearing that, Chloe Davenport immediately panicked. She quickly said, "Ethan Carter, don't you remember? We had a wedding." Listening to Chloe Davenport's words, I smiled. I looked at Chloe Davenport and said indifferently, "But you abandoned the wedding." My words immediately stunned Chloe Davenport. It was as if she had forgotten that she had abandoned the wedding for Kyle Davis back then. Ethan Carter, I've already made it clear to Kyle Davis, he won't come looking for me anymore. I want to marry you now. Chloe Davenport looked at me and said urgently, "I am sorry, I already have a girlfriend, and we're getting married soon." I looked at Chloe Davenport coldly and said, "Chloe Davenport, stop bothering me. You can leave now." The moment I finished speaking, Chloe Davenport immediately became frantic. She kept shouting at me, "Ethan Carter, you can't treat me like this. Ethan Carter, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have left. I am back now, what more do you want from me?" She pleaded with me urgently. Unfortunately, at this point, I couldn't be bothered with Chloe Davenport at all. "Ms. Davenport, please leave." Sarah Miller, standing beside me, looked at Chloe Davenport and said coldly, "Ethan Carter is my husband. He has nothing to do with you." Chloe Davenport suddenly knelt before Sarah Miller and shouted, "Please, I beg you, give Ethan Carter back to me." Sarah Miller couldn't be bothered with Chloe Davenport. Instead, she directly ordered the security guards to throw Chloe Davenport out. Watching Chloe Davenport continuously wail on the ground, I couldn't bring myself to care about her. After Chloe Davenport left, Sarah Miller and I didn't give the matter another thought. On the other hand, the Davenports, having failed to secure investment, had no choice but to declare bankruptcy. But no one expected that Arthur Davenport would directly attempt to flee with his entire family, not even wanting to pay his employees' wages. However, Arthur Davenport's attempts to leave were thwarted by his creditors, who were watching him. He ran to the airport, but was still caught and brought back. The creditors forced the Davenports to repay their debts, but the Davenports couldn't manage to pay them back at all. Ultimately, the creditors seized all of the Davenports' assets, even transferring away the money from Arthur Davenport's and Chloe Davenport's bank accounts. The Davenport company and mansion were both auctioned off. The city officials, left with no options, approached me again. I agreed to bid on the Davenport's mansion and company. As for what happened next, I didn't get involved. Chloe Davenport and Arthur Davenport ended up on the streets and could only go to Kyle Davis. But by this time, Kyle Davis completely ignored Chloe Davenport, intending to avoid her. Over the years, he had scammed a lot of money from Chloe Davenport. Chloe Davenport forced Kyle Davis to repay her, but Kyle Davis refused to comply. He even beat Chloe Davenport. "Chloe Davenport, did you really think I liked you? If I hadn't been after your family's money, why would I have sweet talked you every day? Kyle Davis, through that statement, turned and walked away. A desperate Chloe Davenport brought Arthur Davenport to me, hoping I would help her for old time's sake. Unfortunately, I had long since stopped wanting to deal with Chloe Davenport. I had someone drive Chloe Davenport away. She and Arthur Davenport were left living under a bridge, scavenging for a living. One day, Chloe Davenport surprisingly saw Kyle Davis canoodling with a plump-faced woman. When Kyle Davis saw Chloe Davenport, he walked right up and kicked her. "Chloe Davenport, you relentless pest. I told you long ago not to look for me. Look at yourself now, you filthy." After saying that, he turned and walked away. An enraged Chloe Davenport pulled out a small knife, charged forward, and stabbed Kyle Davis to death. Ultimately, Chloe Davenport was arrested. While at the police station, she pleaded to see me. The police called me. After thinking it over, I still went to see Chloe Davenport. She looked very disheveled, completely unlike her former self. When she saw me, Chloe Davenport's emotions became extremely agitated. Ethan Carter, I truly know I was wrong. I was deceived by Kyle Davis. She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. I simply stared at Chloe Davenport impassively. "Chloe Davenport, no matter what, you have to pay for what you've done." I looked at Chloe Davenport and said coldly, I had long felt nothing for Chloe Davenport. Now, seeing her in this state, I felt no emotion at all. After I left, the police told me that Chloe Davenport was to be sentenced to 20 years. Hearing this, I nodded. No matter what happened to Chloe Davenport, it had nothing to do with me anymore. I only wanted to live my life well with Sarah Miller. After losing Chloe Davenport, Arthur Davenport ran to the former Davenport headquarters on a rainy night and jumped to his death. Since I had acquired that building, I was the first to receive the news. I had my people handle it, and someone came that same day to transport the body to the funeral home. When Chloe Davenport received the news, she cried herself unconscious. She wrote me countless letters from prison, saying she was truly sorry. Unfortunately, I hadn't read a single one of her letters. I simply had my secretary burn them. Later, the police informed me that Chloe Davenport was very ill from excessive grief, and requested to see me, but I didn't go. Chloe Davenport and I were long over. I heard that she passed away filled with unresolved bitterness. Now, I have married Sarah Miller, and we even have a child of our own. Our future will only be happier.